The air conditioning in the ballroom is fighting a losing battle against 1,000 bodies radiating heat, against the nervous energy shimmering in the room like a mirage. Champagne flutes sweat in hands that grip them too tightly. My own hand, resting on the cool, smooth fabric of my gown, feels steady, unnaturally so. My pulse, however, thrums a frantic rhythm against my wrist, a secret beat only I can hear. The spotlight hits the stage, blinding white, and the murmur of conversation dies down, replaced by a collective intake of breath. This is it. The moment the future of Sterling Corp is decided. The moment my future, in ways I haven't fully allowed myself to grasp, is decided too. My husband, Mark, stands a little too close to the edge of the stage, a fixed, confident smile on his face, the kind he practices in the mirror. He catches my eye, and his smile broadens, a flash of perfect teeth, a silent promise of shared triumph. He doesn't see the ice beginning to form in my gaze. Not yet. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. We built this life together, brick by careful brick. Mark and I, power couple, they called us. Rising stars at Sterling Corporation, me, sharp, strategic, with a knack for numbers and a relentless drive that hid, sometimes even from myself, a deep need for security, for belonging. Him, charming, charismatic, a natural networker, ambitious to his core. We met in the break room, two young analysts fueled by stale coffee and impossible deadlines. There was an immediate spark, a shared understanding of the hunger that drove us. We talked for hours that first night, not about dating, but about spreadsheets and market trends, and how we were going to conquer this corporate ladder, together. It felt like a partnership from the start, a joint venture in life and career. Our apartment was small then, filled with IKEA furniture and big dreams. We'd work late, come home exhausted, reheat leftovers, and then pull out our laptops again, strategizing not just for Sterling, but for us. Whose turn was it to schmooze the senior VP? Who would take point on the quarterly report that got us noticed? Every promotion, every raise, felt like a victory for both of us. We were inseparable, our lives woven together so tightly it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Weekends weren't for relaxing. They were for industry events, networking dinners, prepping for the week ahead. We thrived on it. The pressure, the competition, the constant striving. It wasn't just a job, it was our identity. Years passed. The IKEA furniture was replaced by designer pieces. The small apartment by a house in the hills with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, the city we were conquering. Mark climbed faster initially, his natural charm opening doors. I followed steadily, building a reputation for quiet competence, for delivering results no matter the obstacle. We were equals, partners. People envied us. The perfect couple, the power duo. Our home felt like a sanctuary, a place where we could finally drop the corporate masks, where the ambition was soft around the edges, intertwined with affection, with a shared history. We talked about the future, leadership roles, maybe starting our own venture someday, children eventually. The path seemed clear, bathed in the golden light of success. The first crack was so small, so subtle I almost missed it. A late night that wasn't about work. A phone call where his voice dropped low when he thought I wasn't listening. A sudden interest in his appearance that went beyond the usual executive polish. He started spending more time in his office at home. The door closed, his voice a low murmur I couldn't quite make out. Our late-night strategy sessions dwindled. He was still there, physically, but a part of him had withdrawn, retreated behind a wall I couldn't penetrate. I told myself it was the pressure. The higher you climb, the thinner the air, the heavier the burden. He was up for a major promotion, a role that would cement his position at the top. He needed to focus. He needed space. I gave it to him. I doubled down on my own work, proving my worth, making sure I was still climbing, still relevant. Maybe if I kept pace, maybe if I stayed the partner he needed, the distance would close. But the distance grew. The closed-door calls became more frequent. He started bringing work home, that he was unusually secretive about. He'd get defensive if I asked about a late meeting or a name dropped in passing. A woman's name.
Sarah.
A new hire in marketing. Young, bright, eager. I met her once in the hallway. She seemed nice enough, almost timid.
No threat.
My mind, trained to analyze data, to identify risks, conveniently ignored the data points accumulating around Sarah. It built narratives to protect the one thing I refused to see as a risk. My marriage. I tried talking to him. Gentle questions at first. Is everything okay? You seem stressed. He'd brush me off, irritable. Just work stuff. Heavy lifting right now. He'd pull me into a hug, a quick squeeze, a peck on the forehead. Performance of intimacy, I see now. Like a practice speech. It temporarily soothed the gnawing anxiety, but the feeling of disconnection returned the moment he pulled away, the moment his eyes drifted back to his phone. I started staying later at the office myself, partly to genuinely handle increased workload, partly because going home felt empty. He was there, but he wasn't with me. The house felt too big, filled with unspoken words and the ghost of our shared past. I'd walk the halls, looking at the framed photos, us laughing at a company retreat, celebrating a promotion, standing on the steps of our new house. They felt like relics from another life, a life that was slowly, silently, slipping away. I knew, deep down, that something fundamental had shifted. The shared dream had fractured. He was building something new, and I wasn't part of the blueprints. It was a lonely realization, a bitter pill I couldn't swallow. Instead, I became relentless at work. I closed deals that had stalled for months. I streamlined operations, cutting costs, boosting profits. I buried myself in data, in strategy, in measurable success, anything to avoid measuring the growing chasm in my personal life. The whispers started subtly, carried on the corporate grapevine like a virus. A shared lunch that lasted too long. Working late, together, too many nights. A certain look exchanged across a crowded room. I heard her name whispered alongside his.
Sarah.
It was always Sarah. My stomach would clench, a cold knot forming. I dismissed it as gossip, as office politics. People always talked when a man and a woman worked closely, especially when the man was married to another woman in the same company. My denial was a fortress, thick and high. I rationalized every late night, every secretive call. He was mentoring her, guiding a promising junior employee. It was professional. Anything else was unthinkable. Not Mark. Not the man who'd built everything with me. The man whose hand I still reached for automatically in the car, only to find his resting on the gear shift, distant. The first undeniable piece of evidence wasn't a smoking gun, it was a forgotten receipt. Tucked into the pocket of his jacket, left casually on the sofa. A dinner receipt for two. A restaurant downtown, expensive, romantic. Dated a Tuesday night, he told me he was working late at the office. The time on the receipt was late, much later than the office building would be open for regular work. My hands trembled as I held it. My vision blurred. It wasn't just work. It wasn't just mentoring. The name on the credit card was his. The total was for two. The items ordered were not the kind of quick business meal you'd grab when working late with a colleague. They were celebratory, intimate. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. The fortress of denial crumbled in an instant, leaving me exposed, raw. All the little things I'd ignored, all the subtle signs, coalesced into a blinding, painful truth. He was having an affair with Sarah, the quiet girl from marketing. The pain was physical, a sharp, tearing sensation in my chest. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the humiliation. The fact that it was happening under my nose, within the walls of the company we both worked for, the company that was our life. The whispers suddenly weren't gossip, they were reality broadcasting on a frequency only I was now tuned into. My first instinct was paralysis. To curl up and disappear. The second was cold, white-hot rage. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that freezes, that calculates. I didn't confront him. Not yet. What would be the point? He would lie. He would deny. He would twist the truth. I knew him well enough for that. He was a master manipulator. I just hadn't seen it applied to me before. I watched him after that night. Every movement, every word, every glance. He seemed oblivious, or perhaps emboldened. More relaxed even. Lighter. He was living a double life, and I was a character in the one he was writing for public consumption. The perfect wife, the supportive partner. It felt like a cruel joke. The affair wasn't just emotional, it was professional. Sarah wasn't just his mistress. She was now intricately linked to his career trajectory. Was he helping her climb? Was she a part of his strategy? Did the board know? Did anyone know? The corporate world was a jungle, and suddenly, I felt like I was navigating it blindfolded, with enemies on all sides, including the one who slept beside me. I started digging. Quietly. Discreetly. Not like a jilted wife, but like an investigator building a case. I checked his company expense reports, cross-referenced dates and locations. I looked at Sarah's personnel file, her rapid ascent within her department. I paid attention to who she talked to, who she networked with. I realized her timidity was a shield, a performance. She was just as ambitious as he was, perhaps more so, just better at hiding it behind a facade of sweet compliance. The deepening crisis wasn't just the affair, it was the professional entanglement. Mark and Sarah became a unit, their alliance visible to anyone looking closely enough. They worked on projects together, presented together, their professional success intertwined with their personal betrayal. It wasn't just hurting me emotionally, it was potentially undermining my position at Sterling. Would people align with them? Did my husband's infidelity make me look weak, foolish, irrelevant? He started leaving his phone around more carelessly, probably complacent, thinking I was oblivious or too cowardly to look. One evening, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up with a message preview. It was from Sarah. Something about tonight and our plan, that was all I needed. I took a deep breath and opened the message thread. It wasn't just flirting. It wasn't just a physical affair. They were colluding. Talking about internal company matters, about key players on the board, about me. They referred to me as an obstacle, a hurdle they needed to navigate. They were sharing confidential information, strategizing how to position themselves, how to sideline anyone who might get in their way. My name came up repeatedly, always followed by a strategy for managing me, for keeping me placated or uninformed. It was cold, calculated. They saw our marriage, my career, as tactical problems to be solved. That was the breaking point. The pain of the affair was immense, but this was a violation on a different level. It was professional treason disguised as a midlife crisis. It wasn't just my heart they were breaking. It was the foundation of my entire adult life, the career we had built together. They weren't just sleeping together. They were building a future on top of my ruin. A strange calm washed over me. The panic, the hurt, the confusion, it all receded, replaced by a chilling clarity. They had declared war. They were using my trusting nature, my love, my loyalty, as weapons against me. They saw me as weak, as someone who would retreat, lick her wounds, disappear. They were wrong. The turning point wasn't a single dramatic event, but a hardening of resolve that settled deep in my bones. It was the moment I looked at the messages, at the depth of their conspiracy, and realized I couldn't fight for the marriage anymore. There was nothing left to save. My focus shifted entirely. This wasn't about my heart. It was about my survival, my career, my dignity. I stopped trying to understand why. Why did he do it? Why her? The answers didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was what I was going to do about it. They thought they were clever, sharing information, making plans, operating in the shadows. But they underestimated me. They forgot that I had spent years building relationships at Sterling, that I knew the company inside and out, not just the public face, but the hidden currents, the unspoken alliances, the levers of power. They forgot that I had access to the same systems, the same data. And they forgot that a woman scorned, with nothing left to lose, is the most dangerous force in the world. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream. I didn't demand answers. I just went to work. But my work changed. My focus narrowed. I wasn't just doing my job anymore. I was gathering intelligence. I continued to monitor his communications, their shared documents, their calendars. I saw their strategy unfolding, their moves on the corporate chessboard. They were positioning themselves for key roles, leveraging their alliance, subtly undermining potential rivals, including, I realized with a sickening jolt, me. They were circling the CEO position. The current CEO, Mr. Abernathy, was retiring soon. The succession plan was the talk of the company. Mark had always made it clear he wanted that job. I had supported him, believed in his vision. Now I saw his vision included stepping over me to get there, with Sarah by his side. I started having quiet meetings. Not with the executive team, not initially. With people who knew the company's history, people who were loyal, people who saw what was happening and didn't like it. I didn't share everything, not the full extent of the affair and the conspiracy. I was careful. I talked about concerns regarding Mark's judgment, his recent erratic behavior, the way he was pushing Sarah, who was clearly out of her depth in the roles he was putting her in. I planted seeds of doubt. I highlighted my consistent performance, my deep understanding of the company's challenges and opportunities, my steady hand. I also started building my own case, not just emotionally but professionally. I meticulously documented every instance of their collusion I could find, not just personal messages, but emails discussing company strategy, internal projections shared between them outside of official channels, decisions made unilaterally that benefited their allies or sidelined their rivals. I wasn't just a wife gathering dirt. I was an executive uncovering potential corporate misconduct. The gala was announced weeks ago. The annual event, usually a celebration, a chance to relax and network. This year, it was also the stage for the biggest announcement of all, Mr. Abernathy's successor. The air crackled with anticipation. Everyone knew it was between a few key players. Mark was a frontrunner. I was another. There were others, of course, but the buzz centered around us, the power couple vying for the top spot. Little did they know the real battle being fought. Mark was unusually confident in the days leading up to the gala. Smug, even. He acted as if the position was already his, as if my own candidacy was merely a formality, a polite nod to my contributions before he inevitably stepped into the role. He talked about our future at the top, using the plural pronoun, but the light in his eyes was for his own glory. He didn't see the icy resolve in mine. I knew their plan, or at least part of it. Their communications had become bolder, assuming success was imminent. They intended to announce their relationship publicly, or at least semi-publicly, at the gala, framing it as a new beginning after the succession was decided, preferably with him as CEO. A power couple reborn. Their power couple. It was a disgusting, arrogant display they had planned. What they didn't know was what I had been doing. While they were plotting their ascent on stolen ground, I had been consolidating support. I had gone to the board, not with accusations of infidelity, but with a carefully constructed case about Mark's recent poor judgment, his questionable ethical decisions, his attempts to manipulate internal processes for personal gain, and yes, the inappropriate relationship with a subordinate that was impacting professional conduct and creating a hostile work environment. I presented data, timelines, objective evidence. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the health and integrity of Sterling Corporation. I framed it as a necessary intervention, a risk assessment for the future leadership of the company. The board, a collection of shrewd, often ruthless individuals, didn't care about my feelings. They cared about the bottom line, about reputation, about stability. My evidence painted a picture of a man whose judgment was compromised, whose ambition had become reckless and potentially damaging to the company he sought to lead. They saw the data I presented about my performance, consistent, reliable, strong, uncomplicated by personal drama spilling into professional decisions. They listened. They deliberated. They acted. In secret. So here we are. The gala. The air thick with anticipation and the scent of expensive perfume. The stage is set. Mark stands, beaming, ready for his coronation. Sarah is there too, a few tables away, her eyes fixed on him, a knowing smile playing on her lips. They think they've won. They think this is their night. The CEO, Mr. Abernathy, steps up to the microphone. The room falls silent. He speaks, his voice amplified, echoing slightly in the vast space. He thanks the executive team, the employees, everyone who has contributed to Sterling's success. Then he gets to the point. Tonight, he says, his voice steady, we announce the future leadership of Sterling Corporation, the individual who will take the helm and guide us into the next era. He pauses. The pause stretches, filled with the collective held breath of 1,000 people. My own breath feels shallow in my chest. This is it, the moment of truth. He smiles, a warm, genuine smile. After careful consideration, the board of directors has made its decision. He looks out at the crowd, then his gaze drifts, not to Mark, who is practically vibrating with anticipation on the edge of the stage, but across the room, towards me. Mark shifts, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. Why is Abernathy looking at me? Abernathy speaks again, his voice ringing with certainty. The new chief executive officer of Sterling Corporation. My heart stops. Beats again, a frantic drum solo. He gestures towards me. My name. The silence that follows isn't just silence. It's a vacuum. A sudden, complete absence of sound, of movement, of thought. Then a ripple starts. A gasp. A murmur. A wave of shock washing across the room. Mark freezes. His practiced smile shatters, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated disbelief. His eyes, wide and panicked, lock onto mine. He doesn't see the triumph there, or the pain, only a reflection of his own sudden, spectacular downfall. Sarah, across the room, looks like she's been struck by lightning, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the stage, then on Mark, then on me. Her knowing smile has vanished. Abernathy is beckoning me forward. My legs feel like lead, but I walk. Through the stunned silence, through the sea of shocked faces. Towards the stage. Towards Abernathy. Towards my future. Towards the man who betrayed me, who is still standing frozen on the edge of the stage, watching me approach. As I walk, I don't look at him. I look straight ahead. At the stage. At the microphone. At the future I didn't just survive for, but fought for. I reach the stage. Abernathy shakes my hand, a firm, congratulatory grip. Mark is still there, a statue of disbelief. Abernathy gently puts a hand on Mark's shoulder and guides him off the stage, a subtle, brutal dismissal witnessed by everyone. Mark moves mechanically, his eyes never leaving mine, a silent scream in his gaze. Sarah is on her feet now, staring, her hand over her mouth. I stand at the microphone. The applause starts slowly, tentatively, then builds, a wave of sound washing over me. It's a mix of genuine support, stunned reaction, and perhaps a few people hiding smirks. I feel 1,000 eyes on me, but I only see 2, Mark's, filled with shock and betrayal. Betrayal he feels from the board, from the universe, from me. He doesn't understand how. I take a deep breath. The air is heavy, charged. I look out at the crowd. I see faces I know, faces I recognize from his messages, faces I planted seeds of doubt with. I see Sarah, shrinking back into her seat. I see Mark, standing stunned at the side of the stage, no longer part of the spotlight. I lean into the microphone. My voice is calm, steady, carrying across the room. Thank you, Mr. Abernathy. Thank you to the board of directors for their trust. I pause, letting the weight of the moment settle. My eyes sweep over the room, landing for just a second on Mark. He flinches. This company, I continue, my voice gaining strength, has been my life for many years. I've dedicated myself to its success through challenges and triumphs. My gaze flickers back to Sarah, then to Mark again. There's no emotion in my voice, just quiet determination. Building a future, I say, the words resonating, requires a clear vision, unwavering integrity, and partners you can trust. I let that hang in the air. Partners you can trust. The unspoken contrast hangs heavy. I continue, talking about the company's goals, about my vision, about unity and forward momentum. It's a standard acceptance speech, but every word feels loaded with subtext only a few people in the room truly understand. Mark's face is ashen. He looks like he might be sick. When I finish, the applause is louder this time, more confident. I step away from the microphone. Abernathy congratulates me again. People start surging forward, offering congratulations. I accept them graciously, shaking hands, smiling. Mark and Sarah are cornered by a few people, their faces tight with forced smiles. They look like two deer caught in the headlights. Their plan, their arrogant, cruel plan, lies in ruins around them. The public announcement Mark was planning? It's been overshadowed by the public announcement of my ascension. The power couple reborn? Not tonight. Not ever. Later, much later, after the congratulations have died down, after I've navigated a dozen conversations that skirt around the obvious awkwardness, I find myself alone for a moment, by the bar. The room is starting to thin out. Mark is nowhere to be seen. Sarah is gone too. They fled. The victory feels complex. It is sweet, intensely so. A deep, visceral satisfaction. I won. I didn't just survive their betrayal. I turned it into the catalyst for my greatest professional achievement. I exposed their deceit and claimed the prize they thought was theirs. But it's also tinged with a profound sadness. The death of a marriage, the shattering of a shared dream, the knowledge that the person I loved, the person I built my life with, was capable of such calculated cruelty. The CEO title feels heavy, not just with responsibility, but with the weight of what it cost to get here. I walk out of the ballroom, the noise and heat replaced by the cool night air. The city lights sparkle below, indifferent to the personal dramas unfolding within its towers. I am at the top looking out. It's a lonely view. Winning isn't always about joy. Sometimes it's about surviving. Sometimes it's about standing on the ashes of what was and deciding to build something new, something stronger, something that belongs entirely to you. They took so much, but they left me the most important thing, myself, tested and unbroken. The path ahead is uncertain, challenging, solitary in a way I never imagined. But it is mine, and I walk it, not with the light-hearted step of triumph, but with the steady, measured pace of someone who knows the cost of everything and the value of walking alone towards the dawn. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear a version in the comments. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.